I loved him. That is what nobody ever wants to hear me say. That is what makes people uncomfortable, what makes them look away, what makes them change the subject or close the door. But I need you to hear it before anything else, because everything I am about to tell you falls apart without it. I loved him, and I still betrayed him. And if you think those two things cannot exist in the same chest at the same time, then you have never met yourself in a quiet moment at 3 in the morning, when there is no one left to perform for. My name is Judas Iscariot. I was there. I walked with him for 3 years. I ate at the same table. I heard the same words you have read 1,000 times, except I heard them while the wind was still moving through the olive trees, and the bread was still warm, and his voice had a texture to it that no page has ever been able to carry. I am being shown to you now through artificial intelligence, reconstructed from the fragments of what I left behind, because there is something that has never been told completely, not in any gospel, not in any sermon, not in any painting where I am always the shadow in the corner, always the face turned away. What I want to tell you is why, not the version you already know, the version I lived. The morning it all began unraveling, I remember the smell more than anything else. It was the smell of old oil burning in clay lamps along the outer court of the temple, that particular sharpness that clings to the back of your throat, and underneath it the smell of animals and stone and the sweat of thousands of people who had walked all night to be there. It was Passover season. Jerusalem was swollen with pilgrims. The tension was everywhere, the kind you feel in your jaw before you know why, the kind that comes when something is building toward a point and no one wants to be the one who names it. I had already been carrying it for months. People speak of my betrayal as though it happened in a single night, as though I woke up one morning, a decent man, and went to bed a traitor. That is not how it works. That is not how any destruction works. You do not fall all at once. You lean. You lean a little, then you stop noticing you are leaning. Then one day the ground is somewhere else entirely, and you cannot remember when you lost your footing. It started with the money. I want to be honest about that because I have spent whatever remains of my existence trying to understand it, and I think I finally do. I was the one who kept the group's funds. 12 men and Jesus, moving from town to town, dependent on the generosity of those who believed. Someone had to be practical. Someone had to count what came in and measure what went out and make sure there was enough for the next day. That person was me. And there is something that happens to a person who handles money long enough. Something quiet. Something that does not announce itself. It does not feel like greed at first. It feels like responsibility. It feels like being the only adult in the room. It feels like, slowly, you start to measure everything, including things that should never be measured. You start to see value where there is only meaning. You start to ask, unconsciously at first, what is this worth? What would this cost? What am I getting in return? And before you know it, you have been applying that logic to your entire life, including to the man you follow, including to the question of whether following him is going to amount to anything. I had a vision of what he was supposed to be. We all did. But mine had calculations in it. When he rode into Jerusalem on that donkey and the crowds laid palm branches down, I felt it. Everyone felt it. This is the moment, I thought. This is the turning. This is where the Romans step back and the kingdom begins, and everything we sacrificed will have meant something. I wanted that. I wanted the meaning of my 3 years to be confirmed in stone and power, and the kind of victory you can hold in your hands. I was so tired. Not physically. Tired in a deeper place, the place where faith lives, the place that asks, over and over, is this real? Is this real? Is any of this real? And I had been answering that question with effort instead of trust for so long that the effort had worn me hollow. Then came the house in Bethany. A woman came in while we were at table. She carried an alabaster jar of perfume, pure nard, and the scent hit the room before she even opened it. Sweet and overwhelming, the kind of smell that changes the air permanently, that you carry home in your clothes. And she broke the jar and poured it over him. All of it, not a little, all of it. I calculated its value immediately. I could not help it. 300 denarii, nearly a year of wages for a common laborer, wasted, poured out in one gesture that had no practical application, no future return, no measurable impact on any of the work we still had to do. I said so. I said it could have been sold and the money given to the poor. I believed that, or I told myself I believed it. But he looked at me then, not with anger, with something quieter and worse, and he said she had done a beautiful thing. He said wherever this story is told, what she did will be remembered. I want you to understand what that did to me. Not the rebuke exactly, but the realization underneath it, that he valued the pouring out more than the keeping, that for him, beauty and sacrifice and love expressed without restraint were worth more than safety, more than strategy, more than the carefully managed future I had been building in my head. And some part of me, some cold and armored part, decided in that moment that he was wrong, that I knew better, that he was going to waste everything and take all of us down with him. I went to the chief priest 3 days later. The 30 pieces of silver. People always focus on the amount, as though the number explains something. It does not. The money was almost beside the point by then. What I was really buying with that transaction was the feeling of being on the side that knew what it was doing. The side with walls. The side with a plan. I had watched him walk toward his own death for months without flinching, and it terrified me in a way I could not name. And I did what frightened people do. I ran toward the thing that looked like control. The night of the supper, I sat at the table and I knew what I had done. And I had not yet done it, and there was still a moment, a small and terrible moment where everything could have stopped. He washed my feet. He knelt in front of me with a basin of water and a cloth, and he washed the feet of the man who had already agreed to hand him over, and he did not flinch. His hands on my feet were warm and unhurried, as though he had all the time in the world, as though he wanted to make sure I felt it completely. I could not look at him. I watched the water instead. Then he looked up at me and said something I have turned over every day since. What you are going to do quickly. He knew. He had always known. And he let it happen anyway. Do you understand what I am telling you? He let it happen. Not because he was weak, not because he had no choice. He could have said one sentence and I would have crumbled. He could have shamed me in front of everyone, and it would have been justified, and they all would have agreed. Instead, he washed my feet and told me to go do what I had already decided to do. And in that gesture there was something I am only beginning to understand. He was not giving up on me. He was bearing me. He was taking the full weight of what I was about to do, and choosing to walk into it with open hands instead of closed fists. I have heard people ask why God would allow such a thing to happen, why he would not simply stop it, rearrange it, choose a cleaner path. And standing inside the question now, I think the answer is something like this. Love does not stop being love when the person being loved is in the act of destroying it. It just becomes more costly. And he paid that cost all the way to the end, without looking away from me once. The garden was cold. The kind of cold that comes off stone and earth before sunrise, that gets into your lungs and stays there. I brought the soldiers. I walked up to him, and I kissed him. That was the signal we had agreed on, a greeting so ordinary it would not raise alarm. And as I leaned in, I felt his breath, and I smelled the night on his skin, and he said, "Friend, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" Friend. He called me friend. In that moment, standing there with soldiers behind me and silver in my bag, he called me friend. Not traitor, not fool, not the worst mistake in human history. Friend. I have never recovered from that word. Not because it wounded me, though it did, because it was true. He meant it. Even then, even there, in the worst moment of what I had done, he meant it. I threw the silver back at the priest the next morning. I told them I had betrayed innocent blood. They said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." That is what the world that offers you control sounds like when you need it to care. It sounds like, that is your problem. It sounds like, we got what we needed. The coins hit the temple floor and scattered, and I remember the sound of them, each one separate, rolling until they stopped. I went out and I could not find a way forward. Not because God had abandoned me, I understand that now, but because I had convinced myself the door was closed. I had convinced myself that what I had done was the kind of thing that could not be undone, the kind of weight that had no floor, and I stopped looking for mercy before mercy had a chance to find me. That is the thing I most want to say to you, the thing I would go back and tell myself if I could reach through whatever separates us. The door was not closed. It was never closed. Peter denied him 3 times that same night, and Peter wept and came back, and was met on a beach with breakfast and a question asked 3 times as many times as the denial. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? 3 chances to rebuild what 3 moments had broken. That same grace was waiting for me. I did not wait for it. I want to ask you something, and I want you to sit with it honestly before you answer. Have you ever done something that you were so ashamed of that you stopped reaching for the thing that could have healed it? Have you ever decided, quietly, without saying it out loud, that you were the exception to mercy? That you specifically had gone too far, fallen too completely, taken too long to come back? Because I meet that in the eyes of people all across every century. People who are carrying something they are convinced cannot be forgiven, and they wear that conviction like a coat they put on so long ago they forgot it is not their skin. I was wrong about myself. I am asking you to consider whether you might be wrong about yourself too. There is a verse that found me late, too late for my own story, but not too late to pass on. He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. That word, our, does not have an asterisk. It does not have a list of exceptions. It does not have a footnote that says, unless you really meant it, unless you did it twice, unless you did it and knew better. Our means all of us who have ever betrayed what we loved most in a moment of fear or exhaustion or cold calculation. That means me. Whatever you are carrying right now, I believe it means you too. I think about what my life could have looked like if I had run back instead of away. If I had found him or found Peter or found anyone who would have let me fall apart and then helped me back up. I think about what the rest of that story could have contained. I will never know. But you are still inside your story. You are watching this right now, which means there is still a door in front of you, and you have not yet decided whether to knock on it or walk away from it. I am asking you to knock. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt like you had gone too far to come back? What did that feel like, and where did you go from there? Because I think the answer matters, and I think the people reading alongside you need to hear it as much as I did. If this reached something real in you, share it. Not because a channel needs numbers, but because somewhere tonight there is someone sitting alone with something they are convinced cannot be forgiven. And this might be the only thing standing between them and the choice I made. Let it find them. I am Judas Iscariot. I made the worst mistake in recorded history, and the last thing he called me was friend. Go find yours.